When the events industry started to flourish in Uganda, we were mainly depending on bringing in experts from Nairobi, South Africa, and sometimes even further ashore. I think those who have been around will recall the times that every time we wanted to have a show or anything beyond 3,000 people, we would have to bring in companies like Live Gigs from Nairobi. And here you were talking about having professional sound. So at the time, there was no there was no companies that could offer that kind of professional sound. But that has since changed, and it has been because of the investment that different companies have put into this industry. Of course, the pioneer in all this is people like Charlie Lubega of Governor. And prior to that, I had the opportunity to work with Andrew Rugasira of VR, and I think we had the best sound in the land. You know, when we brought in international artists, we would bring in, we would fly in a sound engineer to just manage the equipment that we already had in the country. So that's where we go to work with reputable, world-renowned engineers like Lee Thompson. There's another Robert Watson, I think he was. So those would come in, do their part using the equipment that we had, and you would have a good show. There's a number of people who love sound, it's their passion, and they have invested time and money to learn and skill themselves up. I think the challenge in our industry is the cost of equipment. I mean, it's the same equipment that we use here is the same equipment that is used for the Olympics and World Cup and all these international events, whether it's Rihanna or whatever. So the cost of buying that equipment is very high, and when we come, it's not like the taxes are subsidized. So the demand for the right equipment, the demand for the right sound is there. We as event professionals, we try to invest in buying the equipment, but we also need to invest in training our people to manage that equipment, because I'm seated right in front of a camera. It can have all the bells and whistles, but if you don't know how to use it, you only use, you don't use it to its full potential. We don't have really a school dedicated to providing that kind of skilling, and neither do we have the scholarships. So you find that people learn on the job, and you can only do so much if you don't get exposure. Our industry is all about exposure. Our industry has come from and I don't think we should blame it on government, but also us as a society, we have kind of tended to look down upon the people who provide, and not in a disrespectful way. When your son comes up and says he wants to be a DJ, some people have, the wrong perception that, they call it umudongo. They don't look at the music and, those kind of skills as for example, any other profession. I remember, like back in the days, we had someone like Patrick Muyonjo in the industry. Whenever Lucky Dube would be performing in the whole of Southern Africa, he would say, "I want Patrick Muyonjo on my shows." So Patrick would be in Burundi, in Malawi, in whatever. He was an engineer from here. That is, a sound engineer from here, and and things like that. So we want to put ourselves in a position of strength, so that whenever there is an event of that magnitude, we are the reference point, So there is more demand for the skills that we have than there is supply. So you find that a person who was, carrying the wires on this event, on the next day, he thinks or he feels he has the right to be, the one in the equipment. So sometimes you go to events and you listen to the sound and say, no. Here, when we talk about sound engineers, we're talking about people who are providing sound at the highest level. There's nothing that beats exposure. And I remember the number of times we worked on these international events, and again, the names that come to mind, names like, Elvis Sechanzi, Paul Sentongo, Shaka. We would, when you would work on events like, the Shaggies, we worked on Sean Paul, UB40, and all these other events that we did. The guys they come with, when you see the things that they do differently using your own equipment, you are amazed. Because the thing about sound engineering, you are selling something. It's not tangible. You cannot touch and feel it. And so unfortunately, people don't pay the right money for your skills. So while it requires a lot of training, a lot of time, a lot of exposure, you cannot, when we give you an invoice for a wedding, as much as we are prepared for a big show to fly in a sound engineer and pay him up to $10,000, when we do an event here, no one is willing to bill for just the sound engineer. So for them, they would rather bill for equipment, but not for the skill that that makes that equipment bring out all the bells and whistles. So a young profession, it doesn't look attractive for those who are in the job market, because it doesn't bring immediate rewards. You do it because it's a passion, and then the passion starts paying you, so you start earning from something that you love.